Hey friendly friends, I'm Shamaya. It's like papaya except it's not, and this is Plot Twist Please. Welcome back. If you don't know, Plot Twist Please is a channel where I, an autistic actress, like to talk about pop culture, mental health, and radical self-care. Since it is Women's History Month, I thought I'd hop back on here and talk about something that is essential in terms of how I have moved through the world and how I have learned to navigate the world as a Black autistic woman. And that is ways in which my autism and my womanhood interact with each other in both confusing and complementary ways. I was trying to think of what I should name this video because it's like kind of like when my autism and my womanhood combat each other, it like doesn't really make sense and causes a lot of stress for me. But when they do like circulate one another and just vibe with each other, then it works out. I know I explained that in a really like meta woo-woo kind of way, but basically it's how those two identities interact with each other in my life. That's what I'm going to be talking about today. I feel like I could have just said that and skipped the other stuff. Anyways, you guys, I got my nails done. Did you see? Did you see them? St. Patty meets springtime. So one of the primary ways in which my womanhood, or how I've been socialized as a woman, and my autism clash a lot is in dating. Now, as someone who was AFAB or assigned female at birth and also identifies as a woman, I have been trained to believe that certain things are acceptable in terms of how you go about dating, and that involves, and I guess culturally that started to shift, but one of the things that I grew up believing was that you're just supposed to be nice and you were supposed to make the man, since I'm a straight woman, make the man feel comfortable, make him feel emotionally vulnerable by opening up first, you know, let him know that you're interested by being friendly or having friendly eyes, or, you know, whatever that means, or by smiling, by being giddy, by being, you know, uplifting, bubbly, whatever, what have you. That's never quite been my thing. I've kind of always thought that flirting, like appearing interested in a flirtatious, friendly way, literally just meant dressing to the nines and standing in a corner and waiting till someone approached you. Why didn't they tell me that? I was kind of like, if I'm just over here, sitting here in a corner, not looking anyone in the eye, the love will find me. It's okay, it's fine. We grow, we learn, we change, we grow. Because I would always be around, you know, you have friends who like are booed up and dating and like doing the thing, just all through grade school, high school, college, all the time, just my whole life. And I was always like, am I missing something? Like, am I missing something? Because I know I'm fly. Like, look, I knew I was fly. And I was like, I must be missing something. So that was always my biggest battle, is understanding how people used their womanness to attract a man, or to attract anybody really. I never understood that. The whole like, oh, he's your feminine charm. I'm like, charm? Where? This is me looking for the feminine charm because, hello, knock knock, it doesn't live here. It was just one of those things where I was like, oh, I fundamentally have a different understanding as to how to relate to someone romantically than the average woman, let alone person. But yeah, that was just one of those things. Good times, so good, so good. Sip of water because we got to be hydrated in the throat. The second way in which my autism seems to clash with my womanhood is my understanding of dynamics within female friendships. And I think it makes sense knowing the people, like knowing more about the people who I've connected with right away in my life. A lot of those people were neurodivergent themselves and didn't know it, and we found out later. Or they just like were just had a very like alternative view how they related to people. And so it's like they have an understanding of the world where to them a bunch of the social rules like don't really matter. Like a bunch of if you invite someone to your house but they don't bring a gift, and like they hate you, or like things like that, where it's like, oh, there are all these rules that we have set up within female friendships that we all just assume that everyone knows because we're women, as Katie Heron says in the Mean Girls movie, girl world. There are lots of aspects of girl world that I Never understood. I'm low-key like, is Katie here in Autistic coded? No, because she grew up in Africa, so like it's a culturally different thing. But anywho, we could go into the like the psychology of Mean Girls on another date, because that's something that I really would like to talk about in terms of neurodivergence versus neurotypical culture, because I do think that neurotypical culture is a thing. I think that most people are not neurotypical, but I do think that the culture that we've created very much caters to the neurotypical brain and way of life. And it's really odd to me because I don't think that most people at this point in time are neurotypical. I think the world is full of more neurodivergent people than we think, than have access to healthcare to get a diagnosis, then are able to recognize that within themselves based on their cultural context. Like I just think there are way more of us out there than we think. That being said, that's a whole nother video. But yeah, girl world. Never understood it. Now, the second way that I see my autism and my womanhood conflicting a lot is within boundary setting. So boundary setting when it comes to coworkers who are men, when it comes to friends who are men who are in relationships with women, or who are interested in women who are in relationships with other people. And I think a lot of autistic women particularly feel this need to be super, I guess, hypervigilant about setting those boundaries, because we know that there are signs that we miss. We know that there are innuendos that go completely over our heads. And a lot of us actually end up in trouble when we miss those. Boundary setting when it comes to someone who's in a relationship with a guy and someone who's friends with a guy. So like for me, I tend to have a lot of male friends, just like I just do. And the ones who like have significant others who are women, I'm always super careful around them because I never want there to be questions. I never want there to be some weird energy like that. I never want any part in those kinds of dynamics. So I'm very careful of like when I text them, what I text them about, if I hang out with them by myself or if I hang out with them with a group of people. That's just me. That's just me being safe, because I don't like confusion when it comes to that, because I really do value my friendships. And I would never want that to be ruined because of any kind of misunderstanding. And I think a lot of autistic people, particularly autistic women, take those same precautions when it comes to boundary setting, either as someone who is close to someone who's in a romantic relationship with someone else, or just boundary setting in general. And I just never want that to come in between my friends and I would absolutely never want that to come between my bag and I, okay? Like, we're not gonna lose the gig because we missed a subtle social sign. Like, we're not gonna do that in here. I mean, I'm an actress, so when it comes to directors, producers, anyone on any sort of executive board of a theater company or production company, I'm super careful about how I reach out to them, about the means through which, email versus text, through Messenger versus like Facebook Messenger. I'm just very careful because I know that anything that I say or do can be easily misconstrued. And I do think that in general, women are like that. But I think as a neurodivergent woman who misses subtle social cues, it's even more so. So I guess I could put that both in the correlate with my womanhood and conflicts with my womanhood category. It's like a map. It's like a diagram. It's like a, the one. Venn diagram. Oh, you Northwestern, break right through that line. The third way that my womanhood tends to conflict with my autism is through my fashion choices. Now, I never understood conventional fashion rules. Even growing up, I would pretty much wear sweats all the time. I'd wear sweats and like maybe the same pair of jeans and 2 different combinations of shirts, just because I knew that there were fabrics that I felt comfortable in. They wouldn't irritate me in terms of like my sensory needs. They matched all my other clothing. I pretty much wore sweatpants every day. It was like sweatpants and leggings for me for a very long time. And I didn't really try. Even in college a little bit. Like even when I was like a freshman, sophomore in college, I was like, oh, I'm just gonna wear sweatpants. I'm busy. Cause I was exhausted. That's a whole nother story. I was always tired. But yeah, I just like wore sweats all the time because it was easy. And I was like, why would I bother with something that isn't functional? Like, it didn't make sense to me to invest in fashion because I was like, is it going to make my day more efficient? No. And it wasn't really until like senior year of college where I was like, oh, like I kind of want like boys to look at me like, and I know that's very like anti-feminist, but like The reality of the situation is that was my motivation to start. It isn't now, but my motivation then was, if I want to get a date, I have to try. Try. Again, that is not my motivation today, but as a peewee, junior in college, who had no experience dating, who didn't know anything about any kind of self-worth, that was my motivation. And so I started trying to wear makeup and trying. The photos are very embarrassed. We are embarrassed. It's fine. We gotta grow with the flow. Write that down. So like there was like a stage where I was like, I kind of want to get a date. Maybe it'd be nice to go out on a date, because at that point I had never been out on a date. And so I just like started wearing, I mean, I liked wearing skirts because they were comfortable, but I started like wearing like tighter like tops. Like I realized like that I had a nice figure. I like started wearing tighter clothes. I started wearing like darker or like more thicker eyeliner. Not well. It was kind of given this. I'm not gonna lie. Like I've kind of gone back to my roots, but at least I tailored it though. At least she classed it up a little bit. You know, she classed it up with a little wing. A big transition for me was learning to dress for myself. But you guys, a lot of women go through too. So that also goes into the middle of the Venn diagram. Eventually learning that fashion could also be comfortable, that there are ways to make myself feel good with what I wore, not because it made someone else happy or because it brought someone else joy, but because it brought me joy. So that was a huge part of my fashion journey. And I guess the last thing that I'll talk about is how my autistic experiences and my experiences as a woman have kind of shaped one another. And I talked about that a little bit, you know, I've sprinkled it throughout, but specifically as it pertains to how I communicate now, in terms of dating, in terms of my relationships with other women or other men or just everybody in my life, I have learned to just be more assertive, to be more direct, because I realized that I always responded better to directness than people who would beat around the bush or like kind of cushion things. Cause like, I'm like, it don't compute with like womanism now, or I would say feminism, but womanism is embracing a woman's right to speak up for herself and to voice her opinions and to voice when she's uncomfortable, when she doesn't like something, which seems like a very mundane, fundamental thing that you should just know as a human. But as an autistic person who has masked for most of my life in most scenarios, and who has learned to edit myself in order to fit into the neurotypical world's set of social expectations, as well as a woman, as well as a Black woman who's socialized into a society that does not value her voice, I really had to just get fed up, honestly. I think it all started with me getting fed up. Like, I'm not gonna lie, and I think for a lot of women, and particularly for women of color, it just takes us getting fed up to a certain point. It takes us just being like, oh, like, actually, this is unbearable. I'm done. Like, I think at a certain point, and I hope that at a certain point, a lot of autistic people, and particularly autistic women of color, get to a point where we are just spent masking and hiding our differences and hiding our stims and not asking for accessibility and, you know, either in our workplace or through media representation or in our relationships, just simple human things that we need to navigate the world, not asking for those things. It builds up over time and you're eventually just like, no. I'm excited about that transition, and I'm excited for the discussion about neurodivergence to include more people, both in population, in numbers, and in the types of people that we include in these conversations, whether you're officially diagnosed or not, how to give disabled women of color, disabled Black women their accolades, how to accommodate them in the workspace, backstage, off screen. I'm really excited for those conversations, and I'm really excited that you have decided to be part of them by watching this video. So that's all I have for you today. Thank you so much. Again, this is Plot Twist Please. Please like, share, subscribe, and stay weird, y'all. Bye.